What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and it is currently NFL playoff season. We're getting ready to wrap up Super Wildcard Weekend tonight, Monday night, with the Dallas Cowboys at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think it should be a great game. So far this weekend, I've gone 5 for 5 on my picks. I've picked every single game correctly, and I have the Buccaneers winning this game tonight simply because I don't really trust Dak Prescott at this point to make good decisions throwing the football, and I think that's ultimately what the game is going to come down to. And it's just hard to bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs. But what I want to do in this video is sort of go through some of the interesting moments that happened over the course of Wildcard Weekend. And I guess we'll start with the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Seattle Seahawks at home. And credit to the Seahawks because they actually made this a game in the first half. And at halftime, they actually had the lead 17-16 thanks to Jimmy Ward committing a personal foul on Geno Smith when he was running on a scramble, and that put the Seahawks in field goal range. And the kicker nailed a 50-plus yard field goal to give Seattle a 17-16 lead at half. So the Seahawks actually competed. Geno Smith played relatively well until he did have a fumble in the red zone that cost the Niners. The score was 23-17 at that point, and he did fumble on third down in the red zone. And so who knows, if he hadn't have fumbled, Seattle goes for a field goal, they make it a 3-point game, maybe it ends a little bit differently. But the 49ers just found a way to capture all the momentum in the second half and showed how dominant of a team they are. And I think they are the clear-cut best team in the NFC. They will represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And next weekend, they will be playing whoever wins the Dallas and Tampa Bay game tonight. So it'll be very interesting to see how far they can go and if they can keep this momentum up. And then the other game that happened on Saturday was the collapse of the century, basically, by the Los Angeles Chargers. They went up 27-0 on the Jaguars, who have been one of the hottest teams in the NFL. They haven't lost a game since November 13th against the Chiefs, the team they will be playing next week in the divisional round, funny enough. And so they were down 27-0. Trevor Lawrence had thrown 4 picks, 3 of them to Asante Samuel Jr., a very good player, a very good corner for the Los Angeles Chargers. And it seems like the Chargers always have a lot of good players everywhere, but they can never seem to put it together and play up to their potential. They did make the playoffs this year, 10-7, in a crazy stacked AFC West, at least we thought it was going to be, but they weren't able to get the job done in Jacksonville. And when you look at this game, it was a tale of two halves. Trevor Lawrence looked completely rattled in the first half, and the Chargers looked like they were on their way to winning the game. But then in the second half, the Chargers only mustered up 3 points, and guys like Joey Bosa were being very undisciplined, committing unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, and guys like Mike Williams weren't available for them, and the Jaguars just found a way to put it together in the second half. And they're definitely going to make things interesting, I think, in Kansas City, because the Jaguars have definitely shown that they are a team that is not going to be rattled when they go down multiple scores, and that is something that you definitely need when the stakes get high in playoff time. And so, yeah, the Jaguars definitely outclassed the Chargers in the second half, and I think I just wrote an article on this. This is going to be a very big offseason for the Chargers because I don't know whether or not they're keeping Brandon Staley. I don't think they should, and I think they need to look for an offensive coach that can maximize what they have in Justin Herbert, because you can't waste this production that Herbert is giving you. He just had another sensational season, throwing for 4,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions. And yes, they did make the playoffs for the first time in the Herbert era, but when you're up 27-0 and you can't close a playoff game, it feels like you underachieved, even though they did technically take a step forward and make the postseason. You can't end your season like that. It's not going to sit well with the fans. It definitely isn't going to sit well with the players, ownership. And when you have a guy like Herbert, this is how it works in the NFL. When you have a generational quarterback talent like Justin Herbert, the blame is going to fall on the head coach when stuff like that happens. It's kind of what happened with the Eagles when Doug Peterson was there, because they thought they had this generational player in Carson Wentz who had shown when he was healthy he was an MVP candidate. And then it started to not work out, and so the Eagles must have thought Doug Peterson must not be the guy. So they canned Peterson, and then it just turns out that turned out that Carson Wentz wasn't very good. He was okay in Indianapolis, and then on the Commanders, he was just a complete disaster. And you see what he's doing with Trevor Lawrence down in Jacksonville. And a lot of this is Trevor Lawrence. He is a very good quarterback, but Doug Peterson has really helped him take a step forward. And I think an offensive coach can really do the same for Justin Herbert. Even though he's able to put up these insane numbers on his own without necessarily a great offensive coach, imagine what a guy like Sean Payton could do for someone like Justin Herbert. I don't know. So those were the Saturday games. Two not predictable games. I thought the 49ers would win convincingly, and I didn't see the Chargers blowing a lead that big. So disappointing ending for them. But then fast forward to Sunday, we had 3 games. The Bills taking on the Dolphins in what was also a game that was pretty surprising, because the Dolphins with Skylar Thompson at quarterback made this a game because they were able to force turnovers on Josh Allen. He threw 2 interceptions. He had 2 fumbles, one of them which was recovered by the Dolphins and returned for a scoop and score touchdown. And I think when you look at this game, the Bills are kind of showing how vulnerable they are, because you can get points on this defense when Von Miller is not there, and Buffalo just doesn't seem to have an identity on offense that they can consistently go to and say, this is what we like to do. Their identity on offense is basically just give it to Josh Allen and let him make a play. And that can work in some spots, but it can't be your main offensive attack. And I was really impressed with what the Dolphins were able to do yesterday up until the end, because Skylar Thompson making his first playoff start, he was really impressive to me. Even though he did have a turnover, the Dolphins were just really impressive on both sides of the ball, because forcing turnover, heading into the game, they hadn't been able to force turnovers on the road, and that was something that kept them in the game. And so the Bills will be going to the Bills will be hosting Cincinnati next week. And then just one more note on the Dolphins and Tua. It seems like he is going to come back and be their starting quarterback next year. But when I was watching that game yesterday, my thought was, I don't think it would have gone any differently if Tua was in at quarterback. Meaning, I think it would have gone the exact same way. The Bills would have jumped out to like a 17-0 lead or whatever. And then they would have climbed back and make it close, and then just have Tua make a play here and there to maybe get them over the hump. I'm not saying Tua isn't a difference maker, but I don't see him separating himself from the competition on his team. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he should start next year. I don't know. It was just pretty interesting. And then, so when you go to the next game, you have the Giants and the Vikings. I picked the Giants to win this game because the Vikings have been pretty much fraudulent all year. Most of their wins are one-score games. Their defense was the 29th ranked pass defense in the league. Their defense wasn't very good, and the Giants exposed that. Daniel Jones exposed it, Brian Daboll did, and Saquon Barkley. And let's just fast forward to the last drive of the game. The Vikings were even lucky that drive even got extended, because a horrible roughing the passer call was called on defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence that extended that drive. And then we get to 4th and 8 with the game on the line, with your season on the line. Kirk Cousins dumps it off to TJ Hawkinson behind the sticks, and he gets tackled, and the Vikings lose. You just can't do that on 4th and 8 with your season on the line. Give someone a chance. Give Adam Thielen or Justin Jefferson a chance to make a play to keep your season alive. It was way too conservative, and that's ultimately what Kirk Cousins is. He's a guy that can put up numbers, but he's not going to be the guy that puts you over the top and wins the big games when it absolutely matters most. Yes, he went to New Orleans and won a playoff game, but that's pretty much the only big moment we've seen in his career. He gets paid, I don't know how much money he's made over the last 5 or 6 years playing quarterback, but it's a lot. And when you're paying a guy that kind of money, you expect him to be able to put your team over the top, especially with a roster as talented as the Vikings. When you look at the Vikings roster, they're one of the most talented in the league on both sides. Obviously, you got Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne looked pretty good this year. TJ Hawkinson is a very good tight end, Dalvin Cook. And then when you look on their defense, they have guys like Kendricks and Patrick Peterson, Harrison Smith, a vet who's been very good in the NFL for a long time. And it's just, Kevin O'Connell did a great job in his first season with the team, leading them to the playoffs, winning 12 games. But it was just, the Vikings never felt for real, and that was what got exposed against the Giants. So not too surprising that they dropped that game. And then we go to the last game of Sunday's 3-game slate, the Bengals and the Ravens. Obviously, the Ravens playing without Lamar Jackson, and they made it a close game because their defense is really, really good, and you can never really count the Ravens out of a game because you know they're going to show up and they're not going to get ran over, especially led by a guy like John Harbaugh. But what ultimately cost the Ravens this game was they were in position to take the lead 23-17, extra point to make it 24, but Tyler Huntley he tried to extend and reach over the goal line, but he got stripped, and Sam Hubbard of the Bengals ran it back, and the Bengals ended up taking the lead. So I don't think I've ever seen a swing like that in a playoff game, at least not one that I can remember. And the Bengals really just took all the momentum, and on that last drive, the Ravens tried to go down and score, and Tyler Huntley threw up a Hail Mary that looked like it had a pretty good chance to get caught. It was battered around, and then it fell to the ground incomplete. And so the Ravens are going to have a big offseason ahead of them because they gave Roquan Smith, their superstar linebacker that they acquired from the Bears, a contract extension, a 5-year, $100 million extension. And me personally, I was kind of shaking my head at that, not because Roquan Smith isn't a fantastic player, he is, but you have a guy in Lamar Jackson, your franchise quarterback, who won an MVP in basically his first season as a starter, and I just don't see how he wasn't your top priority in getting a contract extension done with him. And I honestly would have done the same thing. He didn't play because he was injured. He wanted to protect himself, and he wanted to ensure that he would get a big contract, one that he definitely deserves. And so I don't know what he's gonna do in the offseason. Are they gonna keep him, or are they gonna let him walk? It's gonna be a very interesting season in Baltimore, and you have guys like DeAndre Hopkins at wide receiver who are potentially on the trading block, and maybe the Ravens can find a way to acquire him. I don't know how they would make the cap work. Keep Lamar Jackson and then get him some help at receiver, but I don't know. Props to the Ravens for making it a game. Maybe if they had Lamar Jackson, they would have won, but that's something they definitely need to figure out in the offseason. They need to find a way to keep him. And so, like I was saying earlier, Dallas and Tampa Bay will conclude Wild Card Weekend. I got the Buccaneers winning, even though they are, in my opinion, not as better a team overall as Dallas. I think Dallas is the better team. It comes down to the quarterbacks for me. I trust Brady in this spot more than I do Dak Prescott, who led the league in interceptions thrown with 15, even though he missed 5 games. That's just, you can't have that. And who you are in the regular season will translate to the playoffs, whether it's good or bad. And so I don't just expect Dak to stop making bad decisions, stop panicking in the pocket and making horrible throws. I think he's probably going to throw at least 1 interception tonight because it's what he's done in basically every game he's played in, I'm pretty sure, since he came back from injury. I don't remember, but yeah. Let me know what you guys think about the game tonight, Dallas or Tampa Bay, what you guys think of Wild Card Weekend, and let me know what your predictions are for the divisional round of games that will be next weekend. Thank you for watching, and make sure to find the rest of my content linked in the description, and please like, comment, and share this video.